Hello,
Hi
everyone.
everyone.
Sorry for the
Hi.
massive delay. We have been experiencing a lot of tech glitches, unfortunately. Not that anybody cares who has joined, but if you change your password to something, it impacts a lot of different things, which we just figured out. So, apologies for making you wait. And if you've still stayed with us after 20 minutes of delay, we really appreciate your time and attention. This is a very important topic, and Sahiti will be, hosting and taking us through. But I, wanted to just apologize on behalf of Pivot for all the technical glitches and delay for this. With that, I'll turn it over to Sahiti. Sahiti, let's get started.
Yeah, thanks Arjun and thanks everyone for staying tuned. Um, let's start this episode. Now, just to give a brief introduction of the Vivid in Progress series, each month we have this one on one with me and Arjun, and each week we have a new episode of Pivot in Progress where we tackle one new topic that affects all of us in our job searches, in our careers. So, this time we are actually talking about job search strategies that will help our career in 2026. Something that can break through rejections and ghosting in 2026. So, what are the strategies that will actually help your job search get you the right results? We'll try to uncover in this next 1 hour. Before that, I just wanted to thank Arjun for joining again. And Arjun, over to you. Um, let's get started with the topic. I think
Yeah.
let me just set the stage before though. I think one we chose this topic because we see these instances a lot around us and with users at Pivot where when they come to us initially, one of the main things that many people talk about is we're not getting hurt. We're not getting really any callbacks from companies that we're applying to. How do I really amp up my job search? And then we take them through a very strategic and structured program through our through Pivot. And today we're kind of trying to address that same topic and give you some more strategies, some more tips on how to actually encounter, how to not encounter these problems and how to solve them. Arjun, let's get started. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I think there's a lot of mayhem in the job market right now because of the
Yeah,
supply demand dynamics. And we get a lot of questions around like how to tackle the current job market, especially from mid-career professionals. As you know, Saidi, like
yeah,
people, with anywhere about 7, 8 years experience to about 20 plus years experience. And
yeah,
many of us tell us that, or many of them tell us that I've never really experienced such a job market before. So a lot of times when
yes,
you're working in silos on your own and you might be tackling a very difficult job market, you might feel like it's just me. There's something wrong with my profile. There's
yeah,
something wrong with the way I'm searching for
yeah,
jobs. And some of that might be true in some cases, but a lot of times what we can say with experience and a lot of insight about what's happening, that this is unprecedented time. There is not a lot of parallels, and many mid-career professionals that I described are facing such issues. So if
yeah,
you keep depending on old traditional job search strategies that
yeah,
used to work, that got you results within, let's say, 3 months, 4 months earlier,
yeah,
today are taking 8 to 10 months or much longer.
yeah,
And you're also not always getting the target role that you are yearning for, desiring for. You get something that's average, that's below your
yeah.
CTC expectations. So I think the main uh, gist that I'm trying to highlight here is that the game has changed. The rules of the game have changed.
Mm-hmm,
If you continue to play with the old rules, you will likely not succeed in the manner that you are hoping for.
mm-hmm.
And we are here to share what are the new rules of the game and where we are seeing better success rates for our job seekers and career transitioners.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
think let's get
Yeah.
started, Saiti.
So one of the first questions that I want to ask is, like we know a lot of things in the current job search process are broken. What are maybe two or three things that you think that people should absolutely stay away from doing. What are some of the mistakes that people make very commonly but don't realize while doing it? Let's start there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of pitfalls in the current job market because
Yeah,
many of the people are just following what used to work for them. And that's what I
yeah,
was saying earlier. So, if like you have done job search 2 or 3 times before, even once before, chances are you'll say, okay, it worked for me last time. So I'll just, do the same thing again and it should
yeah,
work this time as well. What that meant was like going, first thing you would do is refresh your resume, update it for all the new roles, responsibilities, skills, etc. um, do a quick check yourself. There was no
yeah,
AI usually at those times, so you
yeah,
do a quick check yourself. You might send it to one of your, professional friends, or like somebody who could give you feedback in a more informal manner.
yeah,
And once you finalize that, you would do some basic LinkedIn hygiene optimization, and after that you would just start applying to jobs on any major job portal, whether it was LinkedIn, Naukri, IM Jobs, any of these. And after applying blindly, just through easy apply, you would typically get, I would say, at least you know 5% or 6% response, sometimes slightly less, but you would get a good response rate,
yeah,
right? And then you interviewed with a couple of companies. Ultimately, you landed a job within, generally, I would say on average, 3 to 4 months, not much more than that.
yeah,
So that was what used to happen. Now, many people still continue to believe that approach will work today.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't. For large majority of mid-career professionals, it's
That is
not
right.
working, which is
That,
very surprising, right? Like if you think about something being completely normal and working 4 years ago, and just suddenly now it has stopped working. So first and foremost is that assumption that many people make, right?
yeah,
What I did earlier will continue
will
to
work now. Yeah, yeah.
work. So you have to understand why the situation is different, and I would say there are three things that have changed drastically in the current job market. Number one, um, the demand supply dynamics, right? So right now it's a very employer driven market, which everybody knows. Why is it employer driven? Because there are about 2 to 3x number of candidates in the job market given the layoffs, and given that we as individuals are transitioning more frequently than we used to. Earlier, average tenure at a
Absolutely.
company would be, let's say, 3, 4 years, five
Yeah,
years.
absolutely.
Today, it's about 1.5 years on
Yeah,
average, right? Which is very low. So people are changing jobs more frequently, and layoffs have also created this surplus of candidates per
yeah,
application, right? Per opening. And if you have 2x, 3x more candidates for each opening, your probability, obviously, of getting an interview
yeah,
diminishes by that much, right?
yeah,
So by one third or one half. So that's point one. Second point I would say is that employer expectations have drastically changed over the last 4 or 5 years, wherein because of many reasons, but I would say restructuring reasons, where companies are changing the business model. Like, they might have a huge, engineering team earlier. Today, because of AI, or because of, bigger focus on AI, ML services that they're providing. So both because of the AI tools that you use internally, which improve your productivity, as well as focus on providing AI related products or services to your clients, both
yeah,
of those internal and external AI implications have remodeled your hiring requirements.
yeah,
Meaning earlier you might hire a lot of, let's say, modern stack software engineers.
hmm,
Today you're looking for, more Python engineers, ML engineers, prompt engineers, people who understand data configurations in the AI ML context. So hiring requirements have changed drastically as well, right? So that's, I think, the second reason why things have changed so much. The third thing that is happening is in the hiring system itself. What I mean by that is everybody, I think, knows ATS today, that it is used as applicant tracking software to shortlist the candidates that companies should be interviewing, right? Now, this ATS has been used for almost decades now, right? So it's not a new tool. But what has happened is in the recent past, a lot of candidates are using AI to customize their applications. And it's raised the bar overall, because earlier people were using their own writing skills, which were average. Today, let's say somebody was below average. Now they can use AI tools to
Yeah.
improve their resume and make it above average. So now the
Yeah.
overall average has risen drastically. And when
Mm-hmm.
the ATS is looking at applicants, resumes, LinkedIn profiles, or anything else that candidates have provided, it's becoming harder for ATS to differentiate between the top candidates because there are more of them who are aligning with the keywords and JD requirements, right? So earlier, if there were, let's say, only 40, 50 candidates or maximum 100 candidates that ATS would shortlist, recruiters would be able to then, interview and apply their judgment by going through every person's profile in a uh, human-led manner. Today, ATS is shortlisting not 50 to 100 applicants unless you really force ATS to shortlist only 50 to 100 applicants. It is typically saying that, oh, I think 150 or 200 or 250 applicants are fitting your criteria to the hiring managers. Now, when hiring managers get so many candidates shortlisted, it's becoming very hard for them to go through each and every profile.
Yeah.
So, they just have less bandwidth and less resources to be able to assess all of these larger pool of shortlisted candidates. So basically, to summarize, layoffs and frequent job changes have increased the pool of candidates.
Yeah.
Companies' hiring requirements have changed because of primarily, I would say, AI and restructuring. And number three, the hiring system, because of the ATS and the way it works, is not working as well as it used to earlier. And one of the reasons is candidates are improving their job applications significantly more than they used to using AI. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So I think it definitely means that candidates now have to do something drastically different, change their normal ways of applying normally, and use new strategies to actually get callbacks. Let's dive into that. What Let's dive into at least 3 to 5 strategies of something that candidates can actually do to get callbacks. What are some of the top 3 things you think are shine out to you as the top strategies?
So we've been obviously thinking a lot about this. I think you're also
Yeah.
privy to a lot of the client transitions that are happening through
Yeah.
Pivot. Um, and we pride ourselves on really identifying the root cause issues, which is what we shared in the first part,
Yeah.
and build solutions that are customized to each individual or to target audiences that we are building Pivot for,
Yeah.
which may differ than what solutions look like even 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's not just about providing a service, but it's providing a service or product which will actually help people land
Yeah.
better jobs faster in the current job market,
Yeah.
right? And so for that mission that we have, I think there are a couple of different things that we've been seeing are working better. um, Number one, I think, which is something well understood in the job market today, is job boards are not really working that well, especially the mainstream job boards,
Yeah.
because of the surplus of candidates, right?
Yeah.
So fewer people are hearing back. And to circumvent this, the number one solution today is networking, right? But that everybody knows. I'm not saying anything new there. What most people don't know, though, is that there are different types of networking. And the way we categorize them is high ROI versus low ROI networking, right? So we've seen a lot of people falling prey to low ROI networking, which is basically something that they're reading online and applying on their own, where it says, "Oh, you should use GPT or any AI tool to draft certain messages for people who you're going to reach out to on
Yeah.
LinkedIn or something like that." Now, if you do that, it's not harmful in any way. There's no downside, so please feel free to try it, but it's not going to necessarily result in a lot of positive responses from the people that you're going to reach out to. Why? Because a lot of times when you're giving the prompt, most people, what they're doing is they're talking about only themselves and only about the fact that they need a job,
Yeah.
right? That is very low ROI networking. I would say 80 to 90% of candidates, because they become very desperate when they are networking, they end up just asking people to refer them, to give them a job. And when they use that strategy, they see that less
It
than
doesn't
5%.
help. Yeah.
So networking, this is low ROI networking, which is much more prevalent. What is high ROI networking? High ROI networking is where you really focus more on quality over quantity of outreach that you do, and you don't ask for a job right away. You don't ask for a referral even right away, but you do targeted research about the person you are going to reach out to and the company that you're going to reach out to. Spend 15 to 20 minutes going through the key documents that might be on the website, that might be on the social media, to identify what is most important to that company today, right?
Yeah.
Most people, when they, when I first say this, they ask me, "Oh, you mean like I should do research on what the company's products and services are, or what their mission and vision is, what's their culture like?" No, those are all fundamental things. If you don't know that, why are you even applying? Like, if you don't know what the company is producing or servicing, right?
Hmm.
What I mean is, right now, is the company going through a growth spurt, or is it declining, or is it stagnating, right?
Yeah.
If it is growing, what is helping them grow fast? Are they cracking new markets, or are they launching new products, or they're just growing with the same product, and they have a very large sales force that's helping them distribute over a large market?
Yeah.
If they are declining, why are they declining? Is it the competition is too high, or the clients suddenly don't need their services because of AI or something like that? So go deep, try to understand which phase of business life cycle are they in, and how does it correlate with your specific function or role, because you will need information that affects you and your
Yeah.
work, right? So that takes about 15-20 minutes, maybe up to a half hour, but that half hour can be the make or break in your
Hmm.
job.
Hmm.
Right? So I think this is high ROI networking. When you reach out, you don't just ask for a referral or a job. You actually customize your message, even in a I would say short form manner. It doesn't have to be paragraphs, but you give an insight that makes the other person feel like, oh yeah, this guy has done some research. This girl has done some research.
Yeah. It shows intent.
It shows intent, commitment, and it's the way you do it rather than just reaching out. It's how you reach out to them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's, I think, one of the biggest things. The other thing that I would talk about is, apart from networking, what we have seen is lot of folks, when they are customizing not just their outreach but their resume also, they're just using GPT again. And like I said earlier, because AI is finding it harder to differentiate when everybody is using GPT, everybody's giving similar prompts, key customize my
Yeah.
resume for this JD, right?
Yeah.
Now you're not going to be able to differentiate yourself, so you have to look inwards
Yeah.
and really figure out how your experience and skills can deliver the outcomes that the company is currently looking for,
Yeah.
and highlight those aspects the most. So people say, okay, but how can I customize my resume based on that? I don't see any issue. Like, how can you not? For example, let's say a company is growing significantly, and they are entering new markets. Obviously, if you're a person in sales and marketing, that's a huge opportunity for you to highlight how you have captured new markets, new geographies, or new verticals, right? If you're not in sales and marketing, let's say you're an engineer, at least you can talk about, how you have, built products that have experienced similar growth in new markets, right?
Yeah.
So you can definitely align your uh, pitch in your resume, LinkedIn, outreach messages based on not just what's in the JD, but what you have researched and how the insights you've gathered through that research align with your prior experience. So
Yeah.
most people are not customizing for that. They're just customizing for JD keywords. That's what most of them are doing.
Yeah. That's a good point actually.
E-
Customize for the real value that you're
Exactly.
going
And
to bring
while
and
it may
what.
satisfy the ATS,
Yeah.
again, if you're getting shortlisted from 500 ka pool to, let's say, 200 ka pool, it's not helping you. Believe
Yeah.
me, it's not helping you. You need to get shortlisted into a pool of 50 to maximum 70, 80 candidates, right? For that, you need this kind of a differentiation.
So basically, talk about the impact that you will bring to the company and think about it from the lens that what does the company at that point of the growth story that it is in, what do they need, and what can you bring actually, and try to highlight that in the resume in that you apply with,
Yeah.
and your outreach messages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
The other thing that I would say is really helping a lot of people right now is because every company is thinking about how to utilize AI/ML into
Yeah.
their day-to-day workflow and operations as well. So essentially, it's a technology that transcends any one sector. And if you can upskill yourself, not theoretically by
Hmm.
taking only courses, but by actually building real products, real portfolios that showcase rather than tell, they demonstrate
Yeah.
what work you can do or what you have already done. That is way more effective. We actually did a uh, transition for somebody where this person they cold messaged the founder of a startup, and the founder actually responded by saying that you know uh, you can connect with our HR team, but the only way to crack this role is you actually build something for us.
Yeah.
And while it may sound like a lot of free work, and that you will expend your time on something and then not really hear back, but believe me, using AI today, that free work has become a very low bar, right? You can use Lovable, Replit, Anyten. There's so many different type of AI/ML products which have reduced the time that it takes to build a portfolio from, let's say, 1 day to 1 hour, right? So companies want to see you being able to use these AI tools to develop sellable products or services. And so this candidate, he actually spent, I mean, he was very motivated. So he spent his entire day building not just one feature, but multiple set of features, almost like a end-to-end product using AI tools, right? And he presented that to the founder and the HR team. Immediately got shortlisted for the interview,
Yeah.
and was ultimately given an offer. Obviously, this was a relatively young professional, just with
Hmm.
about 4 5 years experience. But I believe a lot of mid-level and senior folks who don't believe in this, because again they have not landed a job through this strategy
Yeah.
before. So
Yeah.
sometimes they are hesitant to try something new and feel like, oh, why should I do all this free work for a
Yeah.
company? Um, so you can either be hesitant and not land a job and get interviews, or you can get over your hesitation, try this, see if it brings more callbacks and interviews. But
Yeah,
we have
this
seen
is
a lot of good impact from this. Yeah.
yeah, this is actually so true. Showing a project or a small, small project that you can actually deliver, some showcase your abilities with is so important. I think we've seen multiple examples of that, and it goes to say that people, if they try to do this more, this will definitely impact. It definitely takes a little bit of time, but with AI tools, as you said, the time taken is lesser, and you also build some skills that you can always utilize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I think, Saiti, you and I have discussed this a lot because you have a product background. I think a lot of times product managers are using AI tools to
Yeah.
do ideation, brainstorming. So building a product or MVP or prototype is not that hard anymore, right? It's pretty simple.
Absolutely, it's not. Yeah, yeah.
What's harder is assessing if the person has the right taste, judgment, and strong commitment to get the job done,
Yeah.
right? Basically, which implies reliability.
Yeah.
So when you are using these AI/ML tools, don't feel very proud if you have been able to just build something using an AI ML tool, because frankly everybody can do it, right? Same way like you were customizing your resume using GPT, it's a
Hmm.
very low bar today. Everybody is doing that, and that's one of the reasons nobody's hearing back, despite feeling like, oh, my resume is so great and I've done
Yeah.
everything. I have aligned with star and showing the metrics and customized for the keywords. You're still not hearing back. Why? Because you're not showing intent to go above and beyond by doing that targeted research, which will help you differentiate your profile from the rest of the candidates.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think how you actually personalize matters much more than just the fact of you being able to use an AI/ML tool.
Yeah, how can you show that insight? How can you show um, applicability of what you've actually done towards what they really need? And I think that is the crux of the matter. Like that kind of helps you shine, along with these soft skills that you said, right? Like
Yeah.
dependabilities, some sort of consistency, some sort of reliability. If you can showcase that through the exchanges and through the you know, the project that you deliver.
Yeah.
um,
So, Saiti, just before we move on, one thing I do want to summarize things so that
yeah,
people can take actionable insights and apply, right? And
yeah,
see how it's working, share it with us later through, with Pivot. But just to summarize the three things that I think are resulting in better outcomes for job seekers and career transitioners, three of the things, not only three things, but number one is high ROI networking, where you're not just asking for a job but showcasing the alignment between your profile and the company requirements in a very head-on manner. Number two is how do you customize your job application based on targeted research on
yeah,
that, right? Not just using AI. AI is something that's available equally to everybody, but using that in-depth research with which only like 5-10% of candidates will do, and customize, right? So I think that's very critical. And number three is demonstrating your skill set through portfolio or through sample work, as opposed to just taking a course and saying that I have done this capstone project or you know gotten a new certification,
yeah,
which many people can today. So
yeah.
these three are some of the most uh, needle moving factors in the job market today, I would say.
That's great. I think everyone who went through the talk, I think, will benefit from this summary. It brings together all the important points really well. We have one question. I think we should take it here now.
Sure. Yeah, we unfortunately don't have a lot of time left because
Yeah.
we still have to end it in about 10 to 15 minutes.
So let's take a question now. How to position? Sandeep Sahu asks, how to position yourself in the job market is the most important, I guess. But how to do that is really hard in recent times. So he basically wants to ask how to really position yourself in the job market right now.
That's a very good question. One of the most frequently asked
Yeah,
questions at Pivot as well. And I think the reason it's important is because in a crowded job market like today, when you have 500, 600, sometimes up to 1,000 candidates for an opening, even if you are, let's say, in the top 10%, you're still competing with a lot of people
yeah,
who are very qualified, experienced, etc. Right? So if you don't position, if you don't differentiate versus those other candidates, and everybody seems very similar on paper, um, and even in interviews, it's just a matter of luck whether you get shortlisted, right? If
mhm,
somebody happens to like you better because you might have worked at a company that they respect more than the other candidates company or something like that, but it's less within your agency or your um, it's not a controllable factor basically anymore. So if you want to have more impact on the outcomes, more control over the outcomes, then I think positioning is a must do. And now let's talk about how to do that, right? Which is the heart of this question from Sandeep. So Sandeep, I think the how, most people fall into the trap of thinking only about themselves, because they say, oh, it's my positioning, so I should only think about themselves. But when you are a candidate applying to a job, it's like basically you're a product that the company is going to buy, right? So when you sell a product in the market, you don't think about the product's greatness, you think about the client's problems
yeah,
and align the product benefits to those client problems. So we've been talking about that in a different way, but I really want to make it very very clear that it's a demand and supply, it's a buy and sell game basically. We are selling our service and the company is buying our service. So when you're thinking about positioning, most candidates fall into the trap of saying that this is what I have done in my career, these are my skills, these are my projects, these are my experiences, and that's where they draw the line. What they don't do is understand, is the client looking for those experiences, those skills, those projects that you have highlighted? Is the company focused on a very different type of requirement from a candidate perspective right now? So again, first do the deep dive that I had shared earlier, because positioning is very critical. So you have to do the deep dive from a company perspective, and then connect the dots between what the company is looking for and what you bring to the table. So if we take an example here, let's say you are data analytics professional, right? Now, data analytics professional could go into the market saying that, hey, look, I've built all these visual dashboards using Power BI or Tableau or whatever, and I've been able to, uh, get very good feedback from my stakeholders internally. So, for example, your stakeholders might be business leaders. So you might say, okay, one of my business leaders' growth was, stagnating, so I drew insights into why it was stagnating. I built visual dashboards, gave it to the business leaders team, and they were able to identify what were the issues. Great. Now you have done a good job of highlighting what you did in your career. Right? But now let's say the company that you are applying to, they're looking for data analytics professional, but they're not looking for identifying why growth is stagnating. Maybe they are growing very rapidly, but their problem is more around how to manage internal resources, talent, to be able to drive scalable growth, right? Meaning sustainable growth, right? So in that scenario, rather than just saying, "Oh, I've helped a company overturn its growth stagnation," you should focus more on highlighting how you have potentially built dashboards or done data analytics to actually help a company drive sustainable growth from an internal workforce optimization perspective. That is much more aligned with what that company, the new company that you are applying to, is looking for, right? So this kind of customization is what we call positioning in the job market. And the second thing I would say is, obviously think about what are your superpowers, right? That is by far the most well understood thing about positioning. That's why I'm telling it second. But when you think about positioning, let's say if again we take the example of data analytics professional, sometimes people are very good with tools. Like their superpower is using the advanced features of Power BI, Tableau, building like very outstanding reports. Sometimes data analytics professionals are very good at storytelling. So their um, superpower is not necessarily building a dashboard, which they see as like, okay, anybody can build it, but they think they can extract insights from the data much better than most of the professionals, right? So these are just some examples. Obviously, we could go much deeper into different types of scenarios here. But yeah, I think these two things, highlighting your superpowers, understanding what the company is exactly looking for, and aligning your profile positioning accordingly. I think those are very important.
All right, Arjun, I think we have just a couple of minutes, and there was one more point that we wanted to really address, which was if we can lay out a clear, realistic roadmap for job search without burning out that we usually see in candidates that we have interacted when they come to us. We see a lot of burnout in people saying, I've applied for a long time, not hearing back, now how can I do it? And then we help them. For people joining us, can we have like a summarized version of a job search strategy roadmap that you can actually.
You mean from a burnout specific
Yeah,
angle?
I mean from in terms we've talked about some strategies, but if we can have like a roadmap of should do this first, do this
Yeah,
later, and first try to get this done, then step 2, step 3,
sure.
and so on.
Yeah, I think this is something that we actually have developed on our platform, and there are thousands of people, almost close to 10,000 people who have been using this roadmap, which gives you a structure, but it's not super rigid. You can actually
Yeah.
personalize it for your requirements. What we have tried to do, Saiti, is basically identify the most important factors that impact the job search outcomes, right? And
Yeah.
given people the tools to to really effectively do whatever is needed to optimize that particular factor, right? So I'll just quickly talk about what are these modules that we have within our roadmap. So there are basically five
Sure.
modules. Number one is clarity on your role and profile positioning. So People come with different types of clarity level, to be honest. Some people have very high confidence in the direction they are heading in. Some people are a little more on the fence, unsure where should they go, right? And confusion is not just like very like 180-degree transition, like, okay, I'm a engineer, I want to become a marketer. But even if I'm an engineer, should I continue becoming a software developer only, and let's say doing more on stack engineering, or should I transition into, like I said, AIML engineering, which is quite
Yeah.
different, right? So I think number one, if you don't know the direction you're heading in, or if you know the direction you're heading in, but you don't know why you're heading in that direction, meaning you don't have a differentiated positioning, then you are not going to have an anchor point. You're going to be running in different directions. You see one job that is in AIML, you'll apply to that. See next
Yeah.
job in one stack, you'll apply to that,
Yeah.
right? And it's a very like what we call a spray and pray strategy.
Yeah.
So if you want an anchor point, the first thing to do is clarity and profile positioning, uh, right? The second thing I would say is looking at your network to see where you can get support from the existing network, and where do you have gaps that you need to plug by amplifying your network by connecting with new people, not to ask for a job right away, but to kind of sow the seeds, so that when you get to job search, you are not in a desperate situation to ask for help. You've already nurtured those relationships
Yeah.
through, like I said, high ROI networking earlier, right? So that's the second thing. Third thing I would say is upskilling, depending on the type of skills you currently have and what employers are looking for. Not just blindly upskilling in some random AIML tool which nobody is asking you to,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
have in your portfolio, but looking at specifically what the current requirements are from the market, and
Yeah.
where the top uh, companies are actually, let's say, prioritizing hiring. So looking at those requirements, and then based on that come up with a custom upskilling plan to bridge gaps in an ongoing basis. And like people say, learning is continuous, it never stops. But when you're
Yeah.
especially doing job search, you need to make sure you don't have major gaps in your skill set, because many
Yeah.
times we have seen people have really good resumes because they use AI, but they keep getting rejected, not because of their resume, but because they have a major skill gap, right? So I think that's a third thing. If you have a skill gap, you're not going to be
Yeah.
shortlisted in the current job market.
Yeah.
Then you have your job application optimization. I think this one a lot of people are familiar with. How do you customize your resume, your LinkedIn profile? If there's a cover letter or portfolio that you're building, then how do you make sure that they stand out? And it's not a buzzword, everybody says stand out, but very few are actually. So how do you actually differentiate these documents so you can get more interviews? um, and then you prepare for interviews by doing mock interviews. I think mock interviews are really good. They're kind of like a mirror in front of you. Otherwise people just wing it or they practice on their own. But if you do a mock interview, you'll really get an idea of where you stand in the process today. Sometimes it will help you not just with your interview, but your entire profile positioning, your job application
Yeah.
optimization, everything. So I am a firm believer in the power of mock interviews. And then the final thing is the job search strategy itself. So how are you applying to jobs? Meaning, are you applying to a lot of jobs or very few jobs? Where are you applying them? Which job boards? Are you primarily doing networking based job search? What is your conversion strategy? Are you going to primarily focus on building portfolios and sample work, or are you going to do very custom outreach to each individual to get referrals, or a combination of these things, right? So this is the part where you decide uh, how are you going to maximize the callbacks through quality over quantity. But yeah, these are the key components of a job search plan, I would say.
Yeah. I think that was very valuable to know. Um, how how things can be streamlined. Things that even as complex as job search is now can actually be streamlined when you have strong processes and a very strong framework that we have around it.
Yeah.
Um, so, with that, actually, we have two questions, and we're a little over time, but let's just quickly address the two
Yes,
questions.
let's do it
One
quickly.
is, yeah,
For sure.
very quickly. One is the what is the ideal length of resume for candidates who have more than 15 years of experience? I would say 2 years, two pages, but um, Arjun,
Yeah. So with regard to the length, I agree, Sahiti. I think Um, People worry a little too much about this, to be
Yeah.
honest. I think, yes, length should be reasonable. But generally, I mean, if you know the rule of thumb, which is very well known, less than 10 years, one page, over 10
Yeah.
years, 2 pages. Generally, what I would say is, more importantly, make sure it's not overly lengthy by sharing every minute detail. Every single project you have done, um, more having more than like 6 7 bullet points under each experience. Um, so try to make sure that if you have 2 pages, or 3 pages, that you're actually providing the most critical information, which is also diverse, right? You can't always write the same thing again and again in different roles, so it
Yeah.
should be diverse, showcase different expertise and skill set. The last thing I would say is, one thing which companies don't like. There's sort of a pet peeve for many recruiters and hiring managers. Ki if you have utilized 1.5 pages where there's a lot of blank space on the second page, and people just, I don't know why, I think it's a bias in people, where they feel like you don't know how to optimize things, right?
Yeah.
Because you have left a lot of space just wasted. So
Hmm,
they
interesting.
have this bias that, oh, this person doesn't know how to use words carefully.
Yeah.
So just avoid the blank space, especially if it's a lot of blank space or no.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle that is, I'm sure, very useful,
Yeah.
and that many people don't know about. Um, the last question is, we'll quickly cover this because this is a lot. There is potentially a lot to uncover in this. If I'm presenting my core competencies and the skills required for position, along with project annexure, still it is difficult to get hiring managers or HR eyeballs. Like, there's so much to unpack in this. Um, but I think we covered a little bit of this in the previous sections,
We did. And
wherein we
Sandeep, there is no, unfortunately, magic wand, any one thing which will suddenly overnight give you 5x results better. So think about the math here,
yeah,
right? I think a lot of people, when they think about job search, they forget that the math works against you. Why? Because earlier, let's say you were one of 200 candidates. That means, what's your probability? Your probability is 1 divided by 200, which is 0.5%. Right? Today, you are one out of 500 candidates. What's your probability? 1 divided by 500, which is 0.2%. Your
yeah,
probability has dropped from zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.2. It's less than half now of what it used to be. Right? What does that really mean for your job search? That means for your job search that if you apply to 100 companies, you only hear back from 0.2%. Now, I'm just giving you an example. I'm not saying that every candidate will get 0.2% response rate, right? This is just to tell you, in a, kind of like a vanilla job market, you were getting 0.5%. Now you're getting 0.2. So you have to understand there are two things that will help you in your job search. One is, what most people do, they apply to more jobs thinking, oh, it's only 0.2%, so let me apply to 500 jobs, so that I can hear back from more companies, because 500 times zero point 0.2 is higher than 100 times zero point 0.2, right? Now a lot of people fall into that, but what actually is happening is the top job seekers, they are not focusing on the volume of jobs. They're focusing on that conversion rate. They're trying to change the point to, not the 100 or 500 or whatever job applications. How can you make this point two into 1% or into 2%? That is where most people should be focusing on. Right? So that is what we have shared throughout this conversation, that we need to focus on bringing this 0.2% to 1%, 2%, 3%, right? And even if, the other thing I want to say is, like, even if you go from 0.2% to 1%, 2%, 3%, let's say the best job seeker might get to a 7 8 or 10%. What does that mean? That still means that 90% of the times you don't hear back. So that's the nature of the job search process, that you will try 100 times. No matter how good you are, you will at least fail 90% of the times. Many of them fail 99% of the times. So when you're facing the failure, you will feel like it's not working, right? Because you're losing again and again, you're getting rejected, you're getting ghosted, and that will become your experience. But know that that's how the math is of the job market. So you have to continue until you hear back. And
yeah,
these strategies that we are sharing, they're going to improve that conversion rate for at least majority of individuals. But yeah, there is it's not going to get you suddenly 50% response rate or even 30% response rate. That's just, of undoable in the current job market.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think I
hope that
agree.
helps.
Yeah, I hope that helps as well. I think the last question, I'll just take it because we don't have enough time. 9 pages is definitely a very very long one, and definitely not a norm. So you should, even if you have like 14 projects, try to condense that. Try to put out the points that are absolutely required that show impact. Not everything needs to be on your resume. So I would say bring it down to 2 pages for sure, max 2 pages. Um, all right, I think Arjun, we have definitely shot over the time, but we covered a lot in this session, and I'm thankful for everyone who joined and everyone who had wonderful questions. I think we'll see you guys in the next episode, and until then, thanks everyone, and yeah, good night.
Thank you, everyone.